Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Mastermind Season 1, Episode 6. Today, we're going to be talking about humility. Humility versus arrogance. There's a fine line that is drawn between the two of these things. And today, we're going to have this discussion in ways in which we can embrace being humble while still cultivating self-confidence and building healthy self-worth. We're going to be joined today by Dom Einhorn, who's a 20-year tech marketer, angel investor, and founder of Born to Invest. And he's joining us today from the southwest of France. Carl should be here. Claire will not be here. She's got some other things to do, and we're going to have us some good conversation. So good morning. Welcome to the show, and get ready to learn and grow. This is the Daily Mastermind. Everybody, please help me welcome Dom Einhorn to the show. Dom, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great, Sonny. How are you?
So good to see you again. We haven't spoke to you since the Morning Brew days. It's been a while.
That's true. What is that? Almost a year ago?
Yeah. It's been a little over a year. Hope life has been treating you well, my friend, and things are going good. We're going to jump in today, and Carl may be here at some point. I don't know if he's popping in today or not. But we wanted to talk today about humility and being humble in our life, which you have studied philosophy in the Stoics, I believe.
I do. Yeah, nice. I did actually. Long time ago, 30 some odd years ago. Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to jump in this because I did see somebody that was talking about how philosophy and stoicism can come off as arrogant, and that really got me going on the humility versus arrogance conversation, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Humility kills dangerous pride is at the core of stoicism. Marcus Aurelius was constantly humbling himself with the purple robes of the emperorship so that it wouldn't go to his head. And Seneca was constantly experimenting with poverty so that wealth wouldn't go to his head or it wouldn't consume him. And people like Cato would go barefoot and bareheaded because it was below their station to help them. In today's society, what can you tell us and help us talk about the ego, humility versus arrogance? And before you get to going on that, everybody give a late warm welcome to Carl.
Good morning.
This is Dom, retired U.S. Chief in the Navy, Carl Blia. This is Dom Einhorn, and we're talking today about humility versus arrogance and ego. And Dom, take it away.
Well, we're talking on social media, which by itself has become, in my opinion, a vehicle to showcase non-humility and to a certain degree, arrogance.
Sure.
If we go back to the root of the world, we've all, whether you like it, I love hummus, but in Latin, humus is the earth. And basically humility is coming back to the basics, coming back to earth. But
really?
I think, yeah, that's the root of the word itself. Mm-hmm. So basically being humble is being grounded and coming back to earth. And I think what we've seen with the explosion of social media dating back to 2006, initially Facebook, well, prior to that, for those of you who are old enough, may remember Friendster turning into MySpace and MySpace being, replaced by Facebook, and then new iterations, Instagram, TikTok, etc. It's all about anti-humility. It's all about...
I missed the whole MySpace era. I don't think I've ever even seen a MySpace page, but it was pretty much similar to Facebook, right?
Well, to kind of like, I'm a digital marketer by trade. So if you want to go back into the late 90s, early 2000s, you had a website called Friendster, initially, which was one of the first forays that allowed you to put a profile up, a picture, a bio of yourself, and connect with others. Friendster's downfall was the lack of availability of the platform. It became so popular so quickly that it kept crashing. Along the way came MySpace. I knew the founders back then. And what they did is they came in with massive server power to make sure that the servers were not crashing. And it just exploded. And MySpace downfall was spam. People were creating dozens of fake accounts for marketing purposes to pitch all sorts of stuff. And
Really?
it became a smorgasbord of trash, if I may say. And that's the problem that Facebook solved, right? Facebook came along, very limited release initially, first Harvard, then other campuses across the US. It was very smartly done from an execution perspective. And then obviously it took a life on its own, and you had hits and misses in other regions, other parts of the world. You had a large network in Turkey, one large in Brazil that are still kind of fledgling. Obviously, business targeted LinkedIn, which is a survivor. But, it's all about, in my opinion, not being grounded and putting on a face that is not you. It's one of the reasons why I moved away from LA. I lived in LA many, many years, and I couldn't handle it because you would go to a restaurant and the waiter would tell you, I'm an actor and I'm an actress. And my first comeback was, well, what are you doing tending my table? Why shouldn't you be acting?
Then why are you serving me?
And actually, I didn't mean it in a bad way, right? It struck me as odd because people were getting away from themselves to be someone else, and we all see that in obviously not for all profiles, but I'm not sure how many selfies you can probably look at on Instagram.
Man,
but right, I mean that is the anti-humility stance, if there ever was one.
I think that social media is hugely responsible for creating this generation of arrogant, self-worthless people. They're very arrogant, but they have no self-worth. They have no self-confidence. They don't love themselves. They don't have self-worth to go out in the world and master themselves. But they're very arrogant. They come off as arrogant. They come off as cocky, and they come off as conceited, and yet lack the internal fortitude to actually, dominate life. What do you attribute that to? And I want your opinion on this as well.
Well, I think Facebook is a facade of people's, we get to judge them by the pictures that they show, whatever. And a lot of people are looking at that, but what we're not seeing is a lot of us don't know the individual. And yes, some people have these facades that they have lost that reality, but there's these other people that have that, but they haven't lost the reality of themselves. So whatever we're doing, it's really staying connected with ourselves. Social media has a way of disconnecting us from our true self and putting on this, show. I was married. I had a husband. Everything was a facade. But then when I got divorced, everybody was like, "Wow, what happened? Why was this?" Because the photos, the trips, the things. But looking back, you look at it and it's like you have a cover.
Sure. And Don, what do you think about that?
I agree. I think it's this veneer that we all create to a certain degree, but it's also not resonating with most people, and that's the reason why typical engagement rates in social media are 2 or 3 seconds. You have 2 or 3 seconds to get someone's attention. If you don't grab it, you're done. You're over with, right?
Facts.
So is this really someone you would want to engage with? Someone who gives you 2 seconds to make your point? It's not the person I want to engage with.
Ooh, that's good, right? If I have to impress you so much in 3 seconds that's how I retain your attention, you're not the kind of person that I want your attention.
Yeah, let alone my tongue may slip for the first 3 or 4 seconds. It's already over with, right? I mean, you're already put by the wayside. But I think the discussion we have right now on a podcast, that's the antithesis of the problem we're talking about.
100%.
Right, because if you're looking at data and people engaging with podcast content, including Carl's dog, who's listening very
Very
carefully.
I have one running somewhere.
He's being
You know,
needy today.
80% of the people who initiate a podcast stream will listen to the very end, even if the podcast lasts 45 minutes to an hour. Now, that is dramatically different from social media. It's the opposite. So people are getting tired. It is tiresome, right? How many times can you scroll off of how many different social networks and still not being truly satisfied? Because that's the core of the problem. When you're not grounded, when you're not finding your true north, your inner self, you're deviating from your core. And that's not healthy, number one. And number two, nobody wants that. That is why so many people get depressed by social media.
Right.
Because if you're a teenage girl today and you know, you're looking at all these fitness buffs, well, you have to look better than the other one. And if you don't look better, it gets depressing. Some of them commit suicide. How sad is that?
So sad. The loss of any life because of the shit that happens on social media is such a waste of life. It's such a waste. And that's where we're at with this show. Is I'm trying to help people to learn as I learn and grow, because we're all learning and grow. Carl's learning, I'm learning, Claire's learning, Dom's learning. We're all learning. Every day is a learning process. And through learning together, I think something like the Daily Mastermind can help people to overcome that. If we can save one life, then it's all worth it. It's all worth it. It's all worth it. I want to jump to this next part. Humility starts with keeping humble people around us, as we tend to be like our closest associates. Humble people realize that life ticks away every single second of every single day, and we don't waste the time that we have left, focusing on superficial or irrelevant things like Kim Kardashian's dress or the latest episode of Real Housewives. We strive for happiness and making the most every day for ourselves and the world that we live in. What are your thoughts on that statement there, Dom?
I don't have many thoughts on the Kardashians, so we can leave it at that. Because I don't.
Well, the whole point of it was about.
I refuse to engage in that type of content. That's my
Facts.
choice, because it actually does get me off track, off balance, of my core, of my journey of which I'm on. Now, I'm far from perfect. I'm being distracted like we all are. And how can you not be? Because there are so many distractions around, right? So I find myself consuming on a daily basis what I would call, I want to call it bad content, but not necessarily optimal content that basically is on my growth journey, right? I mean,
Sure.
Daily news, right? I do scan daily news to see what's going on in the world, but I'm trying to limit that noise factor and truly build filters. As I'm getting older, the filter is getting more and more restrictive because the time is ticking, as you mentioned, and there is less time left, right? So when I was 20 years old, I was wasting my time like most 20-year-olds on things that I didn't feel were productive, and I was happy doing so. But at almost 52, it's a little different, right? Because you do know, as you just mentioned, that your time is valuable and that you only want to be associated with like-minded people because you've been around the people who have wasted your time in a non-productive way. And that's a lesson for all the young people listening to us. If I could go back 20, 30 years back, I would definitely recommend, look, you need to be selfish at the same time. And I think selfish and humility go hand in hand, right? When I say selfish, I don't mean it in a negative way. I think you need to be restrictive, and you don't want people polluting your life.
Facts.
We all know who they are, right? People that ask you for favors on an endless basis without ever reciprocating. People who are not grateful for what they have or for the value that you provide to their life, et cetera, et cetera. There are plenty of people out there that are willing to reciprocate, where I'm not saying we should be getting something back when we're doing something nice, but at least we should get respect back when we're doing that.
Facts.
And if
And I fully believe in a gift for a gift. You should not be resentful at receiving benefit for benefit given. If you give it, receive it. Carl, what do you think about that?
I finally learned that I get to choose everything I want in my life. Most of my life I spent wanting to change for people because I thought they could change. So I would change myself because if I loved them enough, they would change, or if they did something, they would change. So what I finally realized is that I get to choose now who I want into my life. So, and unconsciously for my whole life, I allowed people, not so good people, negative, all this stuff, because I'm positive, that I brought negative people into my life. Well, now I'm very aware of what I do now, and I only allow positive people that are going to make me laugh, that are positive, that are going to have that added effect to my life. And so it's a conscious effort to make sure that I'm always being impeccable with my word to my friends, because the minute I'm not, I start to suffer, because then that's when I hold my resentment. And so it's always being honest with the people that you love, and you're clear with them.
Powerful. I like it. It's powerful stuff. I like the fact that we control who is in our sphere and who is not. I think a lot of people fail to understand that they have that control. A lot of people, because we are trying our best to be appeasers or people pleasers, we tend to not, like Dom said, when you were younger, if you could go back 20 years and be a little more selfish. And it's not selfish in the sense of I'm a selfish individual. It's selfish as in being protective. You have to build a fortress around yourself and be protective, because the more people you let in, the more susceptible you are to shit happening in your life that goes against your goals and your dreams, right?
Part of how I lasted 20 years in the Navy is because I always created my own reality in my head, and I never allow people to pull me into their story. So words are like black magic, and we have to really realize that we get to choose that person, whatever that person says, we can bring it in here, or we can choose to say, that's your story, and I'm not having anything to do with it. So we get to choose that. But most of us choose to grab that story and go like that. But we get to choose that every single day, every moment.
Sure. Dom, how was it? You basically have spent the last 20 plus years in the tech industry. And you've kind of seen the development of these platforms and just the social media and the technology as a whole. Do you think that there's any thought put into it before it's actually done by the people that are doing it? Do you think there's any care for what it could potentially do when they put something like this out, do you think?
Well, the sad part is, and that's widely documented today, and I forget the name of the documentary on Netflix that goes into detail about. But there's clear and unequivocal proof that, let's say, Candy Crush, because Candy Crush was a client for mine for several years, the famous game. They have an entire team of psychologists on staff to make the game sticky and addictive, instead of doing the opposite. Now,
really,
if you type in Netflix, Facebook documentary, and social media documentary, and you'll see one. The name escapes me right now. Whereas former employees who clearly discuss the length and extent these platforms go to make you addicted to the social feed, because the more time you spend on it and engage into that feed, the more ads you click on, the more revenue it generates. That is a fact. Yeah. So now, I'm an internal optimist, I guess, like Carl. So that's the sad part, because if you look at technology has the potential to save the world and has the potential to kill the world. But if we truly, as humanity, wanted to kill the world, I believe we would have long done so, because we've got the tools to do it.
Sure. Right? That's why I don't buy into like conspiracy theories and all that, because if they wanted to wipe everybody out, they would have done it.
Well, I mean, case in point, and I don't want to be
Strange.
Nostradamus here, but with what's going on in Ukraine right now, which is it's scary in by itself.
Very
But fortunately, knock on wood, nukes have not been used yet, right?
knock
and I
on
know-
wood.
Yeah, I mean, and it'd be over in no time,
Yeah.
if they were being used. But I think a lot of it, of what we're discussing, has to do with the power of habit. So habit forming, you can just as easily create bad habits as good habits, right?
Right.
So let's assume you're 50 years old and you're either slightly overweight or you're morbidly obese. Doesn't matter. If you go back 20, 30 years, as we just discussed earlier, and you burn 1 extra calorie per day, you're ripped today. 1 calorie per day.
Wow.
So habit forming is key. It's something that I've been struggling with in the past, and to create a new habit is not an easy thing to do.
No.
Right? And the most powerful thing we can do is to replace a bad habit with a good habit. So one example, we all have these cravings sometimes, at least I do, right? Okay, I want to have chocolate right now. I'm a chocoholic. Well, lately what I've been doing is I'm trying to replace that craving and to create a trigger point when I'm craving it. Instead of running and eating 100 grams of chocolate, which I used to do, I'm going to go for a quick walk. So that is completely changing it. By the time I come back, I don't even want it anymore. The craving is gone. Right. But then you have another strategy. It's called habit stacking. Habit stacking is super powerful because what you're doing is you're adopting a new habit. Initially, it's tough, but after a week or two, you're doing it subconsciously. And then you say, okay, now it's time to stack another habit on top of that fresh, positive habit that they just created.
Habit stacking.
Stacking. Let's say you have a hard time, a lot of people do, with reading.
Yeah,
And
I do.
well, it's easy to understand why, because we're so distracted primarily by social media and everything else. So the fact to sit down and actually read a book, and I used to be a voracious reader, but social media has disrupted my ability to stick with it for an extended period of time, so that it has become a new and bad habit that's ingrained in my head that I now have to chase away. I have to rebuild this powerful former habit that was ingrained in my head, and I have to rewire my neurons to way back to when they were when I was 20, 25 years old, when I could sit down and in one day I could read an entire book.
Well, see, that makes sense because
since.
I did, in my 18 years in prison, I used to read all the time. And of course, you have no social media in the penitentiary. So I used to read nonstop. And it's hard for me to read now. I have a plethora of books. I got a library right here. And it's hard for me to read those because for me, it's easier to consume content if I watch or if I listen. I'm a kinesthetic learner. And it's a lot easier for me to engage in the content and learn it that way. But that's something completely new to me that I didn't know. I have to rewire my neurons to be the old literature ingester. Is that what you're saying?
100%. I mean, it's a very good book. I forgot who wrote it. You can find it on Amazon. It's called The Power of Habit. And obviously, there's a lot of books, good books about, but that one is very, very good. It actually teaches you to create those habits and undo bad habits, because everything we do on a daily basis is habit driven, either good or bad.
Facts. Right? 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are the same ones you had yesterday. It's habits.
Yeah.
How can you grow? How can you grow from that? It's impossible.
Right.
If you truly want to grow, if you truly want to invest in yourself, I don't think that you can invest into anything better and more powerful than a new healthy habit. Start with one. So
I love that.
Figure out. It costs you nothing, right? It's free. Okay.
Yeah.
Figure out the area of your life, in your life, that makes you the most unhappy right now. Whatever it is, could be your love life, could be business, could be romance, could be health, etc., etc. And that is the key. Figure out an incremental way of doing it better. The reason why we're playing lottery is because we want to go from A to Z, because we're lazy by nature, right?
Right.
We don't want to go through the steps. But can you improve by 1% today? Probably yes.
Sure.
And can you improve by 1% tomorrow? Probably yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, do it for 99 days and you're 99% there.
If you make a habit of improving 1% each day,
And you will see dramatic impact on your life, on whatever is currently bothering you, right? If you're overweight, okay, now some people can't move because they have other issues and whatnot, but for those who can move, start with a walk, okay?
Right.
If you didn't walk yesterday, that's a dramatic step already, okay? Every phone today, you can download a free app as a calorie counter, okay? Do 10,000 steps, okay? Or if that's too much, start with 3,000, work your way up. Okay.
I get my 10K in every day.
But measure that, right? So
have a yardstick, a measuring stick for your improvement in life, and make it a habit.
It's super rewarding, costs you nothing. Okay.
Right.
And the return on investment is bar none in terms of quality of life, quality relationships. You know, if I have to reproach myself something because of my business life, I have not invested enough in my personal life, right? I've not invested enough in my relationship with my wife. Hopefully she doesn't hear me right now because I'm speaking. But she knows that. And, you know, a relationship is like a bank account. There's only so many withdrawals you can make.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you got to make a deposit.
Facts.
Okay. And again, you know, we're talking about this balance because when it's going back to humility, going back to the core, going back to the center, going back to the true north, everything that deviates from that, everything that deviates from the root of humility, which is the earth, is a distraction and gets you further away from who you're here to be and from who you truly want to be. Every time you go out of your way to put on this cute little dress and post it on Instagram, you're going further away from who you are.
Ooh, the harder you work to be out there, the farther you go away from being in here. Ooh, now Mindhorn dropping some wisdom on him, man. I listen. That's what I like. That's why. Listen, Dom's is an incredible thing. Carl, do you have any thoughts on that before we field some of these comments? Because there's a couple of comments in here that I want to get both your guys' opinions on. Did you have anything on that, Carl?
Yeah, I spent my whole life looking on the outer and going through this whole getting shot, doing all this has finally taught me to realize that it's all right here. My happiness is right, not out there. That truly right now, I'm on a journey right now to really make this strong and move forward in my life.
And I feel like this show in and of itself, because it kind of came out of nowhere, I feel like the show is kind of therapeutic for not only the people that are watching, but it's for us as well.
Yes.
Because we're learning and growing. I want to get you guys' thoughts on this. Reeves is 88 says, I have had a thought that being a people pleaser is the center of my being. I have realized that it is more pleasing to be that to yourself and get others to get pleased with who I truly am instead. Any thoughts on that, guys? Dom?
Yeah. So if you're a people pleaser, you're doing the exact same thing as going out of your way to post a cute picture of yourself on Instagram. Basically, what you're doing is you're deviating from your core, from who you truly want to be and who you truly are, to please someone else, not yourself. And that's the reason why you're posting that picture, because you're not posting the picture for yourself. You're posting the picture for others, and you're seeking outside validation from people who you don't know, who don't know you, and who don't care about you.
Facts. And people that you'll probably never see.
I have 100,000 followers. Yippee hooray!
Right, and you have no right, and there's really no point in trying to focus on one person that might say something.
And 27,000 stalkers sounds very productive.
Right. I love it. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for being here today. Dom, thank you so much. I would love to have you back regularly on the show. If you're free, you can. We have topics daily. We switch them up. Would love to have you come in. Carl, as always, my friend, thank you for your presence and your wisdom. Guys, I want to just say this. Arrogance is an emotion that comes from relating to other people that aren't within our control. So when we engage in spiritual pride and focus more on feeling better than others instead of keeping our own attention to our own faculties, That is how being stoic-minded can look arrogant, because we're talking about arrogance versus humility. Remember, we want to learn and grow in order to live our best and most fulfilled lives, and that ultimately ends up in service to others. Being humble draws in, while being arrogant repels. We study to improve our own position in the world, not to elevate ourselves above someone else's station. Arrogance pushes people away. If we can replace it with humility, we can find something about anybody that is great that we can admire, even if it's just the fact that they're here and have been able to cope with this lifetime. And these are my personal notes that I take every day and that I write down. So I appreciate all of you guys. Remember to be humble. I think being humble is it's going to propel your station in life. It's going to elevate you. And not only that, it helps teach other people that might be following you, people that might watch you. If you are a social media person and you have people that follow you, lead by example, man. Any last words, Dom? This is how we do it here, like we used to do on the Morning Brew. We leave everybody with a final word to take with them for the day. Being the guest, I'll let you go first, my guy. Final words of the day from Dom Einhorn.
Be proud of your humility.
I like it. Short and simple. Short and simple. I like it. I like it. Carl, final words of the day.
Always be true to yourself.
100%. You can never be wrong with that. It's hard for me to follow either of that, guys. Be humble, build each other up, lift each other up. Arrogance is ignorance in your own mind, man. You're not as smart as you think you are. Well, none of us are anybody special than anybody else. We're all on an evil playing field, and we all deserve the best, happiest life we can. Thank you to Dom Einhorn. Thank you to Carl. You guys are the best, and I will see all of you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Daily Mastermind.